The New World open beta just ended and I wanted to give you my impression of this game based on my experience. I played the game pretty casually over the past days to not spoil myself too much, and I will be looking at the basic structure, UI, performance, visuals and combat of the game. You can grab it on Steam or Amazon for $40 and it will hopefully launch on the 28th of September. You can also like, comment and sub to support me. I really appreciate every one of you. Okay, so what was my first impression? The immersion for an MMORPG is off the charts. Those few hours I spent in this game gave me goosebumps multiple times. The sound design, environments, OST and voice acting all helped me get into the setting. I caught myself standing there just listening to everything that's going on, watching other players run around the settlement and enjoying the game. Also, everything looked a bit familiar and gave me that Monster Hunter world vibe, especially with the huge boat in the middle of the settlement. Why? Well, the game is basically a culmination of ideas from different games. But it's not something really bad, right? World of Warcraft did it exactly like this and was the most successful MMORPG of all time. Another great experience was the whole intro section of this game. It really helped me get into the setting and I would love to one day explore a massive city on this island, very similar to the one shown in the intro cinematic. A truly good experience. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, because New World still needs polishing. A lot of it. The performance and optimization were awful in some places, combat felt shallow and questing was also missing diversity. The groundwork is here but, well, it's not finished. Still, I think it's ready for release. So let's talk about performance first. I did notice FPS drops in cities and crowded areas. I was first playing the game on 1080p with high settings enabled but needed to lower shadows and ground detail to medium. Most graphical settings did not seem to do much if anything at all and, well, it made it really hard to get stable performance. It seems like stuttering FPS drops and overall bad FPS in cities are a constant companion of yours on all your adventures, no matter what you do. The game was also installed on an SSD, so I didn't notice any massive textures not loading or pop-in that bothered me too much. I also didn't observe any graphical or visual bugs throughout my playthrough, except one leaf clipping through a building. I don't think that's a big issue in this game. I did however have problems with looking into the distance. My inner explorer wanted to climb on a mountain to have a better view over what I can explore in the future. 20 minutes later I stood at the top and was disappointed. The render distance is rather small and I cannot really make out any detail. The larger structures are visible and trees are also there, as well as streets, but that's about it. I really wish there was some kind of way to increase the view distance just for screenshots or enjoying the scenery. I don't need to pan around the camera, I just want to look at the distance, right? So something like a photo mode in video or anything that's similar to it would be really nice. Another thing that struck me was there was just nothing there. They allowed me to climb the mountain, but there was no Easter egg, no secret, no enemy camp, no treasure, no NPC, nothing. So music and sound design on the other hand were top notch. The OST is really fitting for the game and it also has a wide variety of sounds to make ambient noises much more immersive. I felt like I was in the game because of this. I had to stop multiple times just to listen to the amazing music. You can also hear other players throughout the environment walking, gathering, fighting over long distances. It even simulates proximity so you can locate other players very easily. Also the game doesn't have any phasing or layering. It's really nice to run around and find other players. One critique I read after the CBT was there was not enough NPCs in the cities and overall environments. I personally do not find it to be an issue because the overall layout of the maps is specially tailored for players being everywhere. The game is making sure you explore everything and move around the map. In my opinion, it felt much more alive than with the usual NPC approach. One last thing regarding NPCs. Every quest I finished in this game was voice acted. It wasn't half bad, so I am very much looking forward to hear more, especially with the new zones coming, well, possibly post-launch. Good, so what about gameplay? Movement felt smooth with weight behind your character. This is pretty rare in MMORPGs. This makes aiming and shooting much more manageable in this game. There is momentum to your character, but there are also a few things that I really do not feel are right, like there not being any swimming in the game or your character falling off of everything, like every single staircase. Now let's talk about combat. It has a nice base to it, but feels kind of empty. Enemies can stagger you, it feels right for them to be able to do this, but you cannot for some odd reason. Fighting multiple enemies sucks because of this. It's just a race for DPS and who has the most CC abilities. There is also grit in the game which makes you immune to being staggered. There being no stagger despite combat clearly being designed around it just feels odd. Heavy attacks also feel useless because they have a long wind up to them without much benefit. Light attacks are just nearly always superior. One positive is the enemy AI doesn't feel bad. Ranged enemies try to stay away and jump behind cover when they are not attacking you, and melee enemies swarm you and try to flank you. Overall, a solid base with a need of polish and some changes. Attributes and skill trees also provide you with a lot of options to choose from. This will only get better with more weapons. And attributes also provide you with boni around specific threshold, so having a specific build in mind and making your character unique is very much possible. This can range from better healing through potions to being immune to stagger and stuns when using light and heavy attacks. So what about loot? Loot can be crafted or found. I usually found it in chests and crates all over the place, providing you with nice rewards. Enemies can drop stuff, but I really didn't find anything worth mentioning. This is different for dungeons and possible raids and rifts later on in the game, but I didn't have the time to really dive into them. Gathering is extremely satisfying on the other hand, and virtually everything that looks like it can be gathered. Resources do not seem to be instants in any way, so seeing someone mine something means that node will be gone in a few seconds. Crafting also feels like it has a lot of depth to it, with a huge number of recipes and professions. Players can also upgrade benches and settlements and use them together, so a lot of player presence and community feeling to the game. A really great thing for MMORPGs. There are also taxes in the game, which I do not like, but I guess I'm not the only one. They are adjusted by players controlling the city. Those players can also choose upgrades that everyone works towards by completing assignments. I personally wish there was some kind of voting system what to upgrade in a city, and giving all players the control to influence what the city is going to look like in a few weeks or even months. The game also has housing, one of my favorites. There is a wide variety of houses to choose from and all can be entered. Some have gardens and some look like warehouses. Some are really secluded and others are just really in the open. You can turn off the UI by a simple press of buttons and just look out of the window, while other players are running around and doing their own thing. This is a really great way to connect things and populate your MMORPG. I had to walk around the city and buildings with no UI, just listening and watching others play. It was great and reminded me of what I loved about this type of game. Which brings me to factions. There are 3 which you can join: the Marauders, Syndicate and the Covenant. The Marauders are basically Vikings fighting for honor and glory, the Syndicate are a bunch of scientists looking for the truth of the world, and the Covenant are basically Paladins or the Inquisition. Because no one expects the Inquisition, right? You can join the faction which suits you most, but you cannot join the currently dominating faction. This is a very good decision in my opinion, because it helps spread out the player base to even out the odds across all factions. Factions can fight for territory control and get special benefits when they manage to snag one, and changing your faction is only possible on a 120 days cooldown, so choose wisely. The game also gives you limited storage space in each settlement. You need to move everything you want to sell in a different city, and the auction house is city specific. There is a huge amount of stuff you can sell and trade, which makes trading a valid option to make money with. There is also fast travel in the game, but it requires a ZOF, which is limited. There are no mounts by design. This might strike you as odd given the size of the world, but I think it's fine. I do hope, however, they will introduce something in the future, like machines that transport you, maybe a sapling or something like that, to keep everything in line with the lore. There are also achievements in the game that you can complete if you like stuff like that. The game also offers notes, books and more scattered throughout the world, which can provide you with additional lore bits. So lore hunting is also possible. Okay, and the last topic I want to mention is PvP. I turned this feature on immediately and was surprised that no one else was running around flagged. Something seemed odd. I ran around looking for others to fight, but I couldn't find anyone for a solid 10 minutes, despite being near a town with a lot of players around it. The first one I saw was level 20 with a healing staff. I jumped my prey and used a full spear combo on him. And this chat dude just turned around and 4-shot me. Now I understood. So I unflagged again. So the change to scaling was one of the worst additions to the game ever made. Barely anyone will flag now. They need to revert this and adjust it to be closer to the CBT at the end of July. Because like this, the game will have no PvP until the endgame. So my final thoughts. The game is incredible immersion wise and has a lot of promising features already implemented. It feels and plays like an MMORPG, which is rather rare these days. You see them fighting, gathering, crafting, exploring and much more. Overall, a very positive first impression, and I'm hyped to dive into the game once it's released. It's not perfect, but the devs do implement feedback and work on the game with a huge amount of dedication. I am not too worried about the combat and PvP changes because they will possibly change them back, revert them, or maybe just spice it up. The game also has a lot more to offer at higher levels, which I haven't seen yet. More weapons like the greatsword and the one-handed mace, expedition zones, quests and more resources are in the pipeline shortly after release. So don't forget to like, comment and sub to support me. I am very thankful for every single one of you. I also hope you're enjoying my content and will have a lot of fun with the game once it's released. I know I will, and New World will be 100% on the menu. If you're interested about future content, don't forget to check my description box. Anyway, that's all I have for you for now. See you next time and bye.